Paul, we're back a little later than planned again this week due to me being away on the weekend, and I think the next 2 Mondays are bank holidays as well, aren't they? So it's going to be a tough few weeks to get the pod out on time every week. But we've made it. We're back. How was your Sky Week last weekend?
Yeah, distinctly average, but that's maybe a good thing in my position because it doesn't look like anybody around me took a punt on someone that's perhaps lowly owned and smashed it. So I'm relatively happy with my week so far.
What's your lead now overall at the top from your second team?
20 points to my second team and then 26 to third.
Quite a good lead, I think. Are you happy with that lead? Is it a lead where you think, that it's going to take something special to kind of overtake you?
It's like those 2-0s, the most scariest scoreline in football type situations.
Yeah.
Am I happy with any sort of lead? Yes. Do I still think I'm going to like that? Do I think I'm going to win the game? I still think no. Like I just think that there's
pessimistic swine.
Yeah, realist, pessimist, whatever. Like select one from those. But yeah, I'm not unhappy with my position. I'm not unhappy with how I played the game. What I would say is recently transfers aren't coming off as much as what they had done for me in the past. But then at the same time, it feels like what I would earmark as obvious moves aren't coming off for anybody.
Yeah.
And it's but some of the differential moves are. So I don't know if it's going to be a change to mindsets. I'm sure we'll get into this in some of the questions that come in as well. As if recency bias will get people picking players that are lowly owned and perhaps more left field than what transfer trends had been up to now.
Good stuff. I moved down to 6th. I think I'm only about 7 or 8 or 9 points off third still. So there's about 4 teams or 5 teams within 10 points of each other. So that's just like a clean sheet and bonus or a goal or wherever else. My team is pretty template, I think. So yeah, just happy sat there at the moment. I think I've got that. Like I say, I think I've got that sense of calm, which I didn't have in Dream Team a couple of years ago. But the way I'm playing, it taught me then is just keep playing your own game and keep plugging away and being sensible and not trying, because you hear so many people, especially in FPL, right, say, "Oh, you just gotta go for it," right? But just gotta go for it, for example, could have been taking a 2-0 for Eze last week over someone else. That would be an example of just go for it, right? If you'd gone for Isaac, it'd have probably worked out, but. I've got a bit of a sense of calm still. I'm not kind of looking to chase, and I think wherever I finish at the end of the season, I'll be comforted by the fact that I've played my own game. I've played it as optimally as possibly can. If on the final day I'm still in with a shout, I may or may not decide, especially after a few drinks in London, to maybe go for it. But I'm certainly not going to kind of sabotage my whole season on some random.
Well, this is the point as well. My concern is more about transfer volumes and thinking to myself, well, I'm still above average on transfers, and whilst I might be overly concerned about that, the reason that I'm in the position I'm in is because I used the transfers when I did at certain times.
Exactly.
So it's all relative.
Let's have a look at the remaining fixture schedule, which is getting shorter and shorter by the week. This week, now we've got the confirmed fixture counts for the rest of the season for each team, following the announcement of double game weeks, 36 and 37. I think they were both announced either last week or the week before. But just having a look at fixture volumes left. So Brighton have got 9 games left. They've still got a quarter of their season to go, which is quite mad, really. Man City, Man United have got 8 left. Liverpool, Chelsea, West Ham, Newcastle have got 7 left. Spurs, Arsenal, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, Brentford and Bournemouth have got 6 left. And Leicester and Leeds, Villa and Wolves have only got the 5 left. And Palace, sorry. And I think, Paul, that is it now, isn't it? That's the confirmed fixture schedule for the rest of the season. Massive difference between top and bottom. I hadn't really noticed the Spurs one actually. Only 6 left. So say Brighton's 9 or Man City's 8 is quite mad, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Does that change your view on Kane? I imagine there's still instances where you have to captain him.
I was looking, and I think it's because their fixtures are not bunched. They're very spread over the remainder of the season, aren't they? You've got, one obviously Thursday this week, one Sunday, one the following Saturday, one the Saturday, and then it's every Saturday. So there's no real, if it was a bunching of 4 against 2, and there was an obvious 4 for 2 later on or 5 for 2, I'd maybe move off him. But I still just think, as he proved again on the weekend, Spurs are awful as usual. He comes with a 9-pointer, as we said last week. I can see him doing the same against United. I can see him doing the same against Liverpool, the same against Palace, the same against Villa. I just can't see him not stopping scoring.
What do you think a period of games is where you would think current form? Like, what's the volume of game period?
I don't even think a 4 for 2. I think
No, I mean, if you were thinking about how well somebody's performing, what volume of games would you look at over historic from this point backwards?
Sorry, I don't know what you mean, mate. Sorry.
So if you're I'll answer the question on that side. So if Kane, I felt going into the weekend's game that there was a thought that he wasn't particularly on form, and I know that there was talk about moving him to a Liverpool defender, etc. Kane scored 50 points in his last 6 games.
Wow.
And then when you compare that, so what's that averaging? 8.8, just over 8 points a game. And I don't know that any defender in the game averages anywhere near that. So regardless of the price of them as well. So again, and that's with rotation, and some teams like Man City in particular, the defenders in that team aren't going to play every game. So again, I think Kane just sits there for me till the end of the season on that basis.
Definitely, and looking at the last few games as well, even these next 2, if you look at the 2 defences we're talking about, they're playing good teams, but they're playing good teams with poor defences. Like United and Liverpool are not renowned for clean sheets, right? And after that, home to Palace, away to Villa, home to Brentford, away to Leeds. I see those 3 of Palace, Villa and Brentford as tougher defensive games than United and Liverpool as well. But yeah, I just can't see a hop-off point for him, really. And I will be scared of him if I don't own him as well. So I just don't see the point. I'm happy to just kind of sit there and work my transfers around everything else. Any other kind of observations on the schedule?
21 calendar days. There's a few. If you remember, the way that I've always said that I like to play the game is picking players that are the main template players, and then having a bit of freedom outside of that to pick up players with consistency points. So how do you make gains or go against the grain while still maintaining some element of that style of play? And there's a few calendar days, in particular Saturday the 13th of May, that I've highlighted, where I think captaincy will be wide open. And for me, that would then be the day if you're looking for these opportunities to go against the grain without necessarily having kill your rank by going against a Haaland or going against a Salah when he's going to be heavily captained. Then that feels like an opportunity on that day. There's a couple of other instances as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just before we move on and have a look at the transfer targets and the fixtures for the coming week, let's just say hello to everyone in the chat. Windy, nosedive from 21st to 35th off the back of 3 transfers. Not sure whether to stick or twist now. Well, you wouldn't have made the transfers based on one weekend, Windy, I'm sure, being a very experienced and good player. So stick it out for me, buddy. I'm sure you planned them in with the coming weeks in mind. Jim Pro is in. Gary Powell, Alan M. We got lots of questions about Brighton, Man City in particular, which we'll touch on next. Dale is in. FPL Spartans, Glenn Murray, Lee Giles says good afternoon, good luck for the end of the season. Adam Moran, Pete S, Manchester, Bert Welch talks about Isaac, Newcastle, another team that have got plenty of fixtures and look good. Johnny White, Jonathan Maloney, Adam Moran says, would you go without Haaland tonight? I'd have to sacrifice Kane, 9 transfers left. I wouldn't. I saw a stat this week. I I think it's since Saliba has been injured was the period, but since then Arsenal have got the 19th worst expected goals conceded in the league, just behind Nottingham Forest. So my personal thinking tonight was City win, or they score lots of goals anyway. I think City will win something like maybe 3-1 or 4-2 personally. So I wouldn't go without Haaland. He's going to play 90, and it's such an important game that if Haaland does kick off and score the two first half goals, which he's more than capable of doing, there's no way he's being brought off either, right? Because it's a title deciding game. He'll let him carry on scoring. So I would. Any thoughts on Haaland, Paul, or just got to go with him?
9 transfers left, and we have to make some assumptions on the team without knowing what your team is. If you've got Watkins, then sure. Watkins up to Haaland, and then find how you would save that money with a second transfer, perhaps down to a Brighton midfielder or Estupinian or something like that, where you're getting the extra game out of that player, or maybe it's a 1-for-1 on that player whilst bringing Haaland in. You're going to want to do it anyway, and I think we just made a case for keeping Kane till the end. Now, the counter argument would be don't keep Kane till the end and make that transfer now, but I'm not comfortable just now about taking players out that I necessarily want to come back in. If you had more transfers, perhaps, but yeah, I would maybe look to do some work around there. Whatever budget you leave, make sure that if you've got any other transfers penned in, that leaves the value, the money in the bank required to make those as well.
Just on Kane as well, Spurs play on Saturday the 20th of May, which is the 5th game out of their remaining 6. Even after that, Man City, Chelsea and Brighton have a 3-for-1 over Spurs then from the Sunday onwards. So it could even be a case of decide at that point to come off Kane, even though they're away to Leeds. End of the season, which is obviously a kind of dangerous game. Even a 3-for-1 there probably could be worth it, because anything can happen in one game. But yeah. There's a few. Let's have a look at the transfers remaining average first. I get the feeling there was a fair few transfers made last weekend.
So there was an increase in Liverpool defence, increase in Maddison, jumped up from a Leicester perspective up to 25% from 6 or 7%. Yeah. There would have been some other low key transfers made. Thinking of Crystal Palace players, perhaps a couple of defenders, and Eze was relatively popular. I think he jumped up to over 10% owned as well. So, and then that was a decrease in Arsenal value, and some multiple moves might have got made to shoehorn a Brighton player in, even though they weren't playing, but perhaps that was needed to accommodate other moves as well. So, I imagine that'll potentially come down by maybe like 1-ish, and in some of the brackets, maybe 1.5.
Yeah, so last Friday, the top 10 average was 8.2. So this obviously doesn't include all the transfers you've maybe talked about there. Top 100 was 7.7, top 1,000 was 8, and top 5,000, 7.8. You can tell we're getting to the end of the season. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'd be surprised unless the people within the top 10 or top 100 have changed a lot over the weekend, which it seemed to be a bit of a templatey weekend, I think, in terms of captains and points and general predictability about what was going to happen. You would hope they'd all come down one or so, or even more.
I've been a little bit busy with family and work, interacting on Twitter, but I had contemplated and then forgot about it to make a poll yesterday to say, is the 3 captains that you're picking this week Watkins, Haaland and Kane or not, and just having those 2 options.
Exactly, yeah.
Like what you're saying, it felt relatively not obvious, because I'm not suggesting that if you're chasing that you should follow, that you should definitely follow that, but it feels like based on their ownership, that permutation would be what most will be going for.
There are a few players coming up, fairly now lowly owned players that we've been asked a lot of questions about. They're certainly on my radar. I'm assuming a couple of them are on yours as well, Paul. But the 5 I've got up on screen at the moment. Isaacs, we've mentioned Newcastle. They at the moment, Newcastle fill the holy trinity for me of fantasy factors of plenty of fixtures, and good form. which is, once you get all those three in together, Alexander Isak looks a bit of a beast at the moment, doesn't he? He's definitely one I'm looking at. He's very cheap. I had a check this morning. I didn't know how much he was, but 8.1 is incredibly cheap. And incidentally, it's exactly the same price as Rashford, which is another alternative that people may be looking to kind of move on Thursday. What are your thoughts on Isak and kind of Isak versus Rashford for those looking to move off potentially Ollie Watkins this evening or tomorrow?
I know that I'm going to want Rashford at some point in time because there's a captaincy day that it's Man United versus Chelsea. It's a long way down the lines, I know. But whilst every transfer has to count now that I'm making,
yeah, that's it, isn't it?
Got that preference for him for that reason, but that reason only. And I do, not that reason only, because I've got a feeling that once Newcastle secure Premier League status, now they might Premier League status, top four status, that Wilson's going to get some game time, and whether that's in partnership with Isak or whether that's like semi-rotation, maybe Isak misses out on a game or two. And looking at the Newcastle fixtures, the games that I'd want to captain Isak in, I'm sure that he's going to play in those games, like the Leicester game. Because I do think he's a better option than Trippier. I've mentioned I don't have trepidation on picking Trippier at all, and I think he's been a good asset this season, but I think that through explosiveness, Isak's a better option when Newcastle have the single game days and the volume of fixtures as well. So, really tough call.
I think I'm erring on Rashford because if he's fit, he plays 100%, whereas you're not quite sure with Isak, and as you say, the captaincy day and bits and pieces. So, I think, but I do think Isak maybe a bit further down the line, potentially. Because I do think, I haven't got it in front of me, but I do think Newcastle have got now 2 games, and they've got a little bit of a break, haven't they? And then they have their remaining 6 or 7, a bit of a cluster. So maybe at the start of that second cluster.
You can be more flexible. Like if you pick up injuries, you can be more flexible having Rashford in the team than you can be with Isak as well.
That's a very good point.
If you want to go to another striker at some point now, no other striker at present to me stands out beyond Kane, Haaland. But like trends change very, very quickly.
And the other thing why I'd go for Rashford, and it's only a small, again, just looking at little factors as to why, is Rashford plays 3 times, Newcastle's 2 now. So again, you can bring in Isak if you're really desperate for him, kind of after the 2 games, where we'll know again a whole lot more information. That there'll likely be injuries, there'll likely be suspensions and things. So
I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing for me, but I was looking at Iheanacho and thought he'd be if you're doing this hop on, hop off captaincy on the Leicester, if he started against Everton, he would be the perfect candidate for that. But then he came off injured last night. And why I'm saying that I don't know if it would be a good or a bad thing for me is that I would tempt more people to go for him. And then is variation bad for me in my position just now? Probably more so than template players. But I think the way Maddison played last night kind of like strengthens his appeal again. I just don't know that I would ever trust Vardy again in this tournament.
We've also had some questions about Man City and about Brighton. I know we touched on this last week, but again, now is the time where transfers could be made this evening, over the weekend, potentially. McAllister, my understanding, played in a deeper role on the weekend because you said you did want to kind of assess him. I didn't check out the passes or tackles or anything, but
45, I think.
Okay.
I looked at it and I can't remember if it was at full time I looked at it or not. To the point where it didn't feel like he was dominating the ball. I know it was against Man United and that you'll have some lesser opposition perhaps coming up, but I didn't feel like he was dominating the ball from that position like he was doing in the earlier parts of the season. Like create that ceiling of 4 or 5 points that he starts on in a game and then increasing there. It still doesn't feel like he's in that position. Mitoma as well. How many 10-point plus scores do you think Mitoma's had this season?
Oh, flipping heck! I hate when you do this to me. I know he scored a lot of one goals where he would have probably got shots bonus, maybe. Probably something like Martinelli-esque. So I'll go for 7.
2.
No way, because he ain't got shots bonus, is it?
He very seldom gets top shots bonus.
Wow, okay, that's good to know.
And they have got the volume, like you just said, 9 games, right?
Yeah.
And if Matola's fit, well, we'll see after 120 minutes of the weekend. He did look a bit jaded towards the end. I'm not suggesting he doesn't play. I don't know, but there's multiple hop-on points back into Brighton where you're still getting vast fixture volumes, and by that point, the structure of your team might have changed, or you might need to facilitate it slightly differently. I'm not saying I'm not keen on getting Brighton players in, because I am, and I like that fixture volume part. But if you're picking a Brighton mid over Rashford just now, I think I'm still favouring Rashford in that position. But if someone was dead against that and needed the extra money for future moves, like certainly in the shorter term, like a goalkeeper upgrade or such like, then obviously go for that. That's what's putting me off the Man City players just now as well, is that if I was to go Man City over any other players I was considering just now, Akanji is the only one that I can really go to, knowing that I've got the money and that I've got earmarked for other moves in the short term. That's not to say that I won't go back into City, because I think I will, but it's kind of put me off. I've had I don't know that I've had bad experiences with Akanji, but I know that everybody has bad experiences on Akanji. So that's some of my thinking on there. And it was a reason why I did. Did I really want to get one of the premium Liverpool defenders at the weekend? Absolutely. Like, you want Van Dijk because he's going to play every game that he's fit for, or Trent in this new role. Although he didn't pick up passing in that new role, which is interesting.
44 or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he's in that. He's creating more chances and probably should have had more than the one assist that he picked up. But that's what put me off those as well, in terms of planning for future moves, and and that's what's put me off City just now, because I really like Stones, I really like Diaz, and I think that my preference would be one of those two over Akanji.
What about over Rodri? Because that's another person that people are interested in.
Yeah, well, he's 9.1 as well, and Rodri didn't seem to be getting tackle bonus as much as what he was earlier in the season. So whilst he's still getting passing, 4 or 5 points, ticks along nicely, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so I've got a blockbuster question for you then, Paul. Out of all the players you've mentioned so far, Isaac, Stones, Rodri, Rashford, Mitoma, McAllister, and March, out of those 7 players or so, apologies for putting you on the spot, but what would your 1, 2, 3 be in order of priority? Because they're the players that everyone's looking at. Everyone's to know.
I think Solly March is the standout Brighton option, for the fact that he's got different facets to pick up points, because he pick up tackle bonus, shots bonus more frequently, assists. Probably Rashford, March, Isaac, and then because you can always there's multiple Brighton and there's multiple City. Come-in points, and you could argue the same about the other two as well, actually, in fairness. But that would be my put on the spot. That would be my order preference.
Yeah, I don't think I'm far away there. I think like I would personally put Rashford ahead of March, just because he's obviously a lot more explosive. I do think March. I completely agree with you. If you look at his points, he kind of 5-2, 8, 5, 5, 8, whereas Rashford has got the potential for like a 16-pointer at any time, right? So I think of Rashford ahead of March, but Rashford, March, Stones is a funny one. I'm not gonna go in yet because it doesn't quite fit in with my plan. But if he plays the next 2, to me going into that run in, he looks a no-brainer. Just because he's basically Rodri but with clean sheets. But I'm not convinced yet. I think you put me off slightly last week when you said that you don't think he's gonna play all the games. I think he will.
There was a couple of games recently where the game was won, or there was at least one game recently where the game was won and Stones scored and then was subbed at half time. Just preserve the legs.
Yeah.
And he's had a few bad injuries this season.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point.
They've got the Champions League, and Pep wants to win the Champions League more than the Premier League, you would think. I think Stones is the best defender in the Premier League as well.
Wow.
I do. And I think
better than Eric Dyer. Better than Davinson Sanchez.
On tangent, but who would you say is better than Stones when fully fit, if anyone?
On the spot, I struggle to give it thought. I do think, if I go back to last season, I did think that, like, my whole argument about Maguire, because I can't stand Maguire, and my whole argument was, people used to say, oh yeah, but he's brilliant, he's this, he's that, and I used to say, look at Rudiger and look at Ruben Dias as two central defenders who very, very rarely, if ever, make a mistake. Maguire makes a mistake every single game. So I would, off the top of my head, I'll have to think about it now for this season. I like Van Dijk, but I think he tries to be too casual for his own good. I think he's a bit concerned with looking cool rather than defending and throwing his body on the line at times. Again, just like a personal thing, right? But I would say Ruben Dias and Rudiger are the kind of defenders that I think are, on their day, absolutely outstanding and untouchable, personally. But I'll have to have a bit of a think for more recent ones.
Yeah, Rudiger plays for Real Madrid.
I know he plays for Real Madrid. This was my argument for last season. Those kind of players. They're the players, I think. Like Rudiger last year for me, he's just a nail. He doesn't let anyone past him. Rock solid in the air, rock hard. It'd be interesting to say. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'll have to have a think. Let's have a look at the fixtures. Going over firstly the remainder of this week. So Forest and Brighton, which we've touched on. Chelsea, Brentford, West Ham and Liverpool, City and Arsenal. Think Haaland against Arsenal will probably be the most popular captain. Any kind of transfer opportunities? Maybe Brighton, hopping on Brighton potentially?
I think Forest turn over Brighton tonight. That's my prediction.
What? Really? Just because Brighton are shattered and Forest have to start picking up points?
De Zerbi's already come out and said that he's playing the young guy in midfield, isn't he? And then striking position, Welbeck's injured, Ferguson's injured. He might have to play. Not that Enciso's looked good when he's played as well, but he might play Enciso. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've just got a feeling they'll turn him over. I think Haaland, standout captain. Like, if I was chasing, would I go Salah captain? I think there's better opportunities. I think there's better opportunities.
West Ham have improved as well. They have improved. And Salah might score, right? But Haaland is hat-trick material every game. He's definitely, they're not going to rest him for any of this. If he scores a goal or two, he's going to stay on. I can't see anything. And with Arsenal's defensive stats, all this jazz. I
had mentioned earlier on about Saturday the 13th of May being a good day to split, like to pick a differential captain. Do you know when Brighton play Man United and Brighton play Newcastle? I think that there's good opportunities in those games to pick up. There's no standout player for me, the captain necessarily. When Brighton have played this season and I've required a captain from them, I've defaulted to Dunk. But there's certainly an argument for picking one of the attackers. And similarly, in those two games, you've got Rashford and Isak that you could potentially captain as well. So another couple of opportunities, and why I wouldn't go out against Haaland tonight, even if. Yeah. I'm not trying to dictate the template for everyone to follow. There's other opportunities, I think.
Thursday, Everton, Newcastle, Southampton, Bournemouth, Spurs and Man United. Could be interesting. Obviously, we've mentioned Isaac away to Everton. Could be fairly decent. Spurs and Man United at the moment are both scoring a few goals, but both conceding every single game. So you think Kane and Rashford are going to be standout options. I think I'll be going for Kane. What's your thinking?
Probably the same. What Rashford's at 7% just now, top 1,000. What do you think his ownership is after Thursday?
I don't think it'll go up ridiculously, and by ridiculous I mean it's like 70%. But I think it'll go up to maybe like 40 to 50, like 45 to 50. I think he's easy to get to because of his price, because of the formation. When people see him in the lineup against Spurs, just conceded 6, I think the temptation will be too strong.
If Rashford didn't start, I think you're thinking about making a transfer to Rashford. I'm not saying that you are, but I know that you're thinking.
I'm thinking about it, definitely, yeah.
That's one of your options. Yeah. If he didn't start, would you make a move? Again, I'm not trying to lay out your exact moves, but I imagine it would probably come from Watkins. Would you consider Isak on that day as a potential if Rashford didn't start, or would you just hold Watkins and then think about moves next week instead?
It's a good question. Let me just have a look at the fixture grid. So United would be home to Villa in the time that Newcastle would be nice fixtures, away to Everton, home to Southampton, then home to Arsenal after that. No, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just leave it because United have got Brighton and West Ham after that, and Wolves. I probably wouldn't. I'd just leave it. Put on Kane. I suppose I'd be happy. It just reduces variance for the evening. Because if people do bring in Rashford, they may be tempted to captain him, and I'd see it as like saving a transfer in the short term. So I wouldn't. What about you?
I'm not tempted. I'm not sure I wouldn't be tempted to move to Isaac. But again, it's like one of those ones that I'd have to spend the hour before lineups were announced. Well, it would only be half an hour, right?
It would be half an hour.
But
wouldn't you be nervous about him not starting on the Sunday? I know it's a nice fixture, but wouldn't you be worried then all weekend thinking, oh my God, he may not start? I don't know.
Well, I'd be less worried if he smashed it against Everton.
Fair point. That's a fair point.
But then if he blanked against Everton, you're right. Where's my disappointment level compared to the ecstasy level of
exactly that
of nailing it?
Saturday, Palace versus West Ham. God, there's not any games Saturday, is there? Palace, West Ham, Brighton, Wolves, Brentford and Forest. Is this right? Oh yeah. I was thinking if I copy these down right. Brighton and Wolves. My immediate thought would probably be Lewis Dunk against Wolves. 5 pointer to start off with.
Wolves aren't as defensively crumbly as porous as other sides, so I probably would pick Dunk over a midfield option. There's an argument if you still own Tony or Rhea as well, albeit I can't imagine with one clean sheet in 11 games, I think it is now for Rhea, that people would be considering that. People might still own Eze as well. I know a few people went into the punt on Eze from Crystal Palace. If you didn't own a Brighton, if you didn't own Dunk, maybe that's an option, but 2/3 of the top 1,000 now own him. So I think Dunk's the obvious option. Just
to go back slightly, a really good question of John O'Donnell. If Konate doesn't play this evening, because he's rumoured to maybe have a bit of a knock, do we think Stones would be a good move? So kind of similar to you, if Rashford doesn't start, what if Konate doesn't start? What do you think there? Liverpool have got 3 games pretty quickly after. I think I would probably hold. What do you think?
Yeah, and they've got 2 home games. This is a one
after this one. They got 3 home games on the trot.
Yeah, Liverpool's home record is be part of the reason why picking up a Liverpool defender as well. I think I would hold, unless you got some news that he was out longer term. I think Klopp said something about him being positive. I don't know what that means, but I know what being positive means. But
do you, Mister? I'm not going to win Sky. Are you okay to stay after 1, or do you need to go at 1?
No, I've got a meeting at 1. So
okay. So we need to shape up. The only other thing I would say for this looks like a pretty natural move off keepers from Raya, who plays on the Saturday for Brentford, onto another. I think I'd probably eyeing up Ederson for me. I think. Any thoughts? I know we've touched on this a bit before.
The options for me are Ederson, Alisson, De Gea, or Pope. And I think Ederson's the standout option, but I appreciate it is 7.9, so people might not be able to get there. And if you can't get there, then looking at those others.
Captain Haaland away to Fulham. We get to see the lineups, which is nice. If he doesn't start, who would you go for? Salah. Got to be home to Spurs. I'm taking it. Yeah. And finally, next midweek. I can't believe how many games there are in succession. This is unbelievable. I didn't realise. I know it's like a double game week in FPL. I didn't realise how many days, just one after the other, there's football. It's absolutely amazing. Monday the 1st of May, Leicester versus Everton. So you mentioned Maddison's ownership went up from 5 to 25 or something percent, obviously with this in mind. Got the assist last night.
I think in actual would have been an incredible punt, but he looked like he'd done his hammy last night. So
really? Okay. I didn't see that.
When he was the assister for the assister. So he played Maddison in to play Vardy in. And when he done that, it looked like he pulled his hammy. So I think that he's out. Otherwise, I would have thought he'd have been a nice differential for those that were happy to chain in out.
Tuesday, 2nd of May, Arsenal and Chelsea. I had a quick look at the ownership levels yesterday of Martinelli and Saka, and Martinelli seems to have stayed in lots of teams. Saka seems to have been taken out of a lot of teams. I think Martinelli will probably be the most popular and probably best, in my opinion. captaincy shout in that on that day?
I think it'll be close. I think those that own Saka will captain Saka,
Right.
and everyone else will captain Martinelli, and therefore it'll come somewhere to a similar-ish point.
Could be a swingy day. Wednesday, Man City, West Ham, Liverpool, Fulham. Could be goal fest in both games there. Obviously, Haaland, if he starts, Salah if he doesn't.
Yep.
And then Thursday, Brighton, Man United. A bit of a tougher one, this one, I think. Obviously, they've just played the final. What's your thinking after that on this day?
So this is usually my default dunk position. Well, it possibly will be dunk regardless anyway, but you could definitely make an argument for more in this situation for an attacker from either side, I think.
And what you mentioned earlier, this could be an occasion where you just chuck it on anyone, right? And hope that your punt pays off that particular evening. You could put it on Mitoma where he could score 2, whereas Dunk will only get 5 points, for example. So there's lots of options there. I'm just looking, and captaincy wise, and pretty set for this next week or two. So kind of reasonably happy. We'll try and rattle through the questions we haven't answered. We've answered most of them. We've answered all the ones on Stones versus Rodri versus Brighton mids. We've answered ones on Rashford, Stones, Diaz. I think it's probably fair to say that Diaz is probably the best option, but he's obviously very expensive. I think with my plan, I was having a look, and Canate to Diaz later down the line looks, I think Sunday the 14th of May looks potentially a decent move, or on Sunday the 21st of May maybe. We've answered all the questions on Mitoma and Rashford. Go for so Paul's top 3 was March, Rashford, and then Isaac. I think mine was Rashford, March, then Isaac. So pretty close. Dale asks, how many transfers do you think we'll need after Sky Game Week 38? So this is after this next week or two with more transfers used. I think you said last week about it's fairly easy to kind of navigate, you think?
It's a difficult question to answer, because if you're loaded with a team full of the players that have volumes of games already and you didn't get any injuries, you probably don't need any. Genuinely, you could probably get
just injuries, right? Yeah.
I'd be comfortable with 2 transfers to be able to navigate through after that.
Wow, that's interesting.
The more the better.
No, of course.
Like what's a minimum? I would say probably 2 for cover injuries.
I'm just looking, and I think we've answered every single question with what we talked about, which is absolutely brilliant.
Question about Jota. There's one question about Jota.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
3 for 1, and would I make that move? Depending on how many transfers you've got, if you want a punt to try and take you up, but knowing that you're probably going to take him back out again, you need an extra couple of transfers, I think, in the bank to do that. If I had 8 or 9 and you really wanted to do it, then go for it. If any less than that, I wouldn't. And then there was a question about someone moving someone to Trent. And I just think the difficulty with Trent is that it locks the value in your team so much that it's going to be difficult to make moves elsewhere. But if your team can accommodate it, and you know that it's not going to affect future moves, then that makes a good idea.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just having a quick look through. I must have missed that question. Apologies, but I think we've answered most of them. So yeah, really good stuff, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing all your insight there. And plans seem pretty. It seems like a pretty straightforward navigation through. I think the ones will benefit massively now. Obviously, the ones who've got the structure and players already in place, and those with a few extra transfers can afford to take a few extra punts, like double up on defences, for example, or double up on bits and pieces where they could get those extras there. But in terms of navigating that whole period, we just talked that until Saturday the 6th of March, when there's only, there'll only be 13 game days left after that. That all seems reasonably comfortable to navigate. It's just who you bring in, right? It's the whole Rashford against a Brighton midfielder, against potentially Isaac. I think Isaac's a bit of a punt, personally. Don't get me wrong, wonderful player, and he could go right off. But if he doesn't start, you'd be absolutely gutted. And you just haven't got that with Rashford and March. I say that now. March will be the one bloody rested this season now, or whatever else. But good stuff. Thank you, Paul, and hopefully we've answered all the questions. The quickest look at the leagues. Got the overall leaderboard now for the rest of the season. Paul first and second. Dale Pointer close behind in third. Jirong Tang, apologies Jirong if I've pronounced that wrong. sitting in 4th, 2990. Joseph Devine, a point behind in 5th. I'm 4 points behind that in 6th. David Baxter is just 12 points behind me in 7th. John Ashworth in 8th, and Niall Murphy. I'll take the top 9. I don't know why. We should have taken 10. Apologies to the person in 10th. We'll get that. But Niall is he's right up there as well. So he's, no messing about there. Four Nations League, Paul 1st and 2nd, myself 3rd. There's a bit of a gap now to Ian in 4th, Dan in 5th, Liam in 6th and 7th. And the FFH Members League, which I haven't updated because Dale's actually top. I didn't update that. Apologies, Dale, but you are actually top in that now. So well done, Dale. I'll update that ahead of next week. And we have to go. Paul's got a meeting. He very, very kindly offered to jump in quickly to do a quick stream. Hopefully we've done a good job. Like I say, answered all the questions earlier on, and thank you so much for joining us as usual. Paul, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty1, MCANULTY. I have been a little bit slacker in replying to people recently. Apologies. I just had a few things.
Family and work, mate. I mean, where's your priorities, right? My handle on Twitter is at FFH Fergi. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. We really, really appreciate it if you press like. We've only got 9 so far, Paul. That's shocking. 9 likes. Please press the like button.
Because you're not third anymore.
That's it, isn't it? Remember to subscribe in the bottom right hand or the corner of the screen if you haven't already. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast on the podcast versions and leave some comments. We'll be back next week. We'll have to confirm again the time and date because there's two bank holidays back to back now, so we're going to have to work out when we're both free to be able to do it. But rest assured, we will be here answering all your questions, looking ahead to our plans for the next week or two. Looking ahead to the remainder of Game Week 39 and on to Sky Game Week 40. Have a great weekend all, and goodbye for now.